Greetings, my name is Mars. I am host of the Watcher's Prophecy News, only on www.kdov.us, America's best Christian radio station. You can find us here every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for our weekly rebroadcast. Now, I'm not here to preach any kind of fear. Let's get that straight. In fact, I'm not a preacher at all. My calling personally is just a watcher on the wall. I do conspiracy radio broadcasts courtesy of KW Radio. So we do not have a secret agenda or even a spirit of fear. And I'm here today, however, to show you the vile tyranny of a world gone absolutely mad. Right now, the world is being handed over to the devil himself. I have some shocking revelations tonight that may prove your heart, may move your spirit to prepare even faster. Get ready. This is the Watcher's Prophecy News. I have epic information for your mind. Now, lately, we have noticed an extreme amount of Russian and United States high-frequency traffic. It's being monitored. Military ham radio monitors believe this is related to possible Russian ICBM test. And active bombers now, Russian bombers, on roving 24-hour patrols, making it very hard for Pentagon computers to keep up. Even the Pentagon has now said this week that World War III was literally just around the corner. But still, no one seems to get it. I don't know how many of you heard General Mark A. Milley, the highest general in the land, almost shouted himself hoarse with a great chest-thumping chicken hawk performance. His tirade sounded like something that came right out of a Dr. Strangelove movie. He said, "I want to be clear to those who wish us harm. United States military, despite all of our challenges, despite our operational tempo, despite everything we've been doing, we will stop you. We will beat you harder than you have ever been beaten before. Make no mistake about that." General Milley went on to bluster his oncoming brawl would be highly lethal, unlike any war ever on Earth before. Anything our army has ever experienced, at least in the history of warfare, involving fighting in highly populated areas. Now, this situation in Syria is escalating. We are now past the point of no return, at least in diplomacy. And the United States is now in a position where we do not really have any leverage anymore. We're backed into a corner. I believe the next phase, a major event, the United States is now talking about going to war with Russia. Now, I've been telling you this for many years, but today I see an extra added bonus in things that I'm about to announce to you tonight. Assad is currently granting all of the folks he deems terrorists amnesty if they all leave Aleppo now. UN warns that by Christmas the United States will completely lose Aleppo. Time is running out for the United States. Millions of children are being killed, adults and children. Now, Bummer is at the will of a gone mad, Muzzy-loving administration that finds war the absolute best route to peace. U.S. Army Chief thunders at Russia, "We will beat you, we will stop you, we will destroy any enemy." We weren't even saying that in the Cold War. That's nothing compared to what I have. Now, this was linked to me yesterday. Got a phone call. Was about the most hideous thing I've ever been told. Now I asked my contact, are you sure? Can you verify this? He said they are expecting it and confidence is high. Well, ladies and gentlemen, under the sound of my voice, heed this warning. We do not know the future. We will not fear because we know that God is fully in control. But yesterday, with this phone call, the information from one of my highest level military U.S. Army contacts, now he has told me he has seen a memo from the Department of Defense to expect a around the election sneak attack. That's right. And to have his men and things in order. That's pretty bad when they tell you to have your things in order, ready for instant recall to base. That's right, you heard it here first. Now, let me try to get you to understand exactly in more detail what is going on. Break this down a little bit. There is a sense currently in Washington and Moscow alike that a military showdown between the United States and Russia is absolutely inevitable. Now, Dave Hodge, and I'm using some of his posts, put it this way. In the past week, these very disturbing events have happened in relationship with the events in Syria. Russia's put ground troops now in Syria, heavy ground troops. Russia's completed several missile shield tests in Syria. Putin has threatened war if NATO does not evacuate and vacate all of Eastern Europe. Russia has moved tactical nukes into Estonia and Latvia. Clinton, at debate number 2, said she would impose a no-fly zone in what is tantamount to an absolute declaration of war. I don't think Putin's not hearing these debates. Clinton said she supports the use of special ops in Syria, leaving ground troops to be next. John Kerry threatened Russia with terrorism in their cities for their position in Syria. I'm sure that went over well. The Russian embassy in Washington, D.C. tweeted out a picture with missiles pointed at Obama's press secretary with a thinly veiled reference to danger from such terrorists on our own soil. Ladies and gentlemen, the winds of war are definitely blowing. Syria looks and feels like Sarajevo prior to the commencement of World War I, in which one assassination set up a war that killed millions. This conflict, which will go nuclear, looks and feels like World War I from our past. However, these events and their outcome have been foretold thousands of years ago in the Bible. As I review the relevant passages, perhaps you will get the same stinking feeling that I have currently in my stomach that I did when I began to realize the fact that it is soon to arrive. The destruction of Damascus is a prophecy. Some mistakenly think that it stands alone in the Bible. However, it turns out that it is only the first in a large sequence of events that are increasingly more serious, with much more having profound effects on the human race. Ezekiel chapter 38 tells us about a Turkish-led invasion into Israel. Turkey is accompanied by Iran, Sudan, and Libya. It's in Ezekiel 38:5. Saudi Arabia is also mentioned in Ezekiel 38:13. Do you think it is a coincidence that all these nations are fighting in Syria right now? The dragon spoke of in the Bible is Satan, who works through various governments of the earth to establish his evil kingdom and destroy God's church by persecuting and destroying his followers. We all know this. Satan's aim has always been to usurp God's power and throne and to force people to worship and obey him. That definitely goes even for the United States. Notice our country has changed, those of you that are a little older, which is unquestionably under the influence right now of Satan, as evidenced by the fact that we are about to elect a confirmed witch as president, will in the end time force people to worship contrary to a conscience or be punished. Revelation 18 talks of a country the Bible calls Babylon that is destroyed by fire in 1 hour and plagued with death, mourning, and famine. Revelations 18 and 8. I believe this passage represents America and coincides with Jeremiah 51. The U.S. is a place of tremendous wealth. Revelation 18:12. The country even sells its money, gold and silver, and the petrodollar, which is the root cause of the coming war in Syria. Revelation 18:11 and 12. It spreads its sexual immorality to other countries. Revelations 18:13. It lives in luxury. Revelations 18:7. It is suddenly and utterly destroyed by fire. Revelations 18:8, Revelations 18:9 and 10, Revelations 18:17 and 18. Now I believe that this is the fate of the United States should we pursue this awful war in Syria under President Hillary Clinton. And trust me, she will pursue this. Let me continue to break all this down for everyone so that you can see this crystal clear. The first step in my mind toward a direct showdown was taken by the United States. By now, it is no secret in Moscow, or indeed in any Middle Eastern capital, that the American A-10 airstrike of September 17th against the Syrian military position at Jebel Tudar in the Dinar el-Zur region of eastern Syria was definitely intentional and not accidental. When there is radio traffic on your frequency that the pilots heard, stating that these were Syrian army positions and the planes attacked for over an hour, this was definitely deliberate. The Russians have heard all this. It's not, as originally claimed, an accident. Scores of Syrian soldiers died in that attack, as well as many Russian officers. The fact that President Obama instituted a secret inquiry to discover which link in the American chain of command ordered the attack pointed to his suspicion that a high up in the Pentagon, or possibly even in the CIA, had ordered the airstrike in order to sabotage the U.S.-Russian military cooperation deal in Syria that John Kerry had obtained after a long and tedious ordeal. Now, these concessions he made to the Russian Foreign Minister Leonov in these negotiations, especially his consent for extensive sharing of intelligence, were found totally unacceptable in the United States Defense Department and the Pentagon, its military and intelligence community. Now, basically what this means is that there is a saboteur in the American government, and he is being sought. This was a strong hint of the knowledge in the Kremlin that someone in the U.S. administration was holding out against the implementation in full of the cooperation deal agreed upon, and was therefore responsible for its breakdown. The United States is only left now with two options. As I said, this is my opinion. They'll either stand idly by in the face of Russian, Syrian, Iranian onslaught of a pillow, or shelve the coordination arrangements for the United States and Russian air operations in Syria, which they just did yesterday, with the inevitable risk of a clash in the air at any time over Syria or over the Eastern Mediterranean. I expect this. Abrupt halt to U.S.-Russian relations was the aggressive bombing of rebel positions in the Syrian city of Aleppo today, killing over 200 children. According to the information from our sources in the Pentagon throughout Thursday, Russia has killed a whole bunch of U.S.-backed rebels in Syria, a lot of them, and it's bad, really bad. This is Putin's gesture back at the United States. To me, it's important to note that these rebels are mostly Al-Qaeda terrorists operating under the name of Al-Nusra Front and ISIS terrorists whom the United States is indeed arming, as proof in these emails where Hillary himself has armed these people. These so-called moderate rebels who would terrorize us just as quickly as they are Assad. And now Russia has come to Assad's aid and begun killing the U.S.-backed rebels. Putin was right. Hillary Clinton did indeed start this mess. Cooperation in Syria between the United States and Russia consistently hit this same roadblock. Syria wanted to bomb terrorists and those trying to overthrow Assad. The U.S. constantly said, "We can't tell who he is, so please don't bomb any of them." Russia got tired of achieving nothing, and a little over a week ago, the United States cut off all cooperation with Russia in Syria. Today, Russia stomped all over the terrorists, and the U.S. is furious because they cannot control anything. At least not for long. Hillary sees this as a grand opportunity to start World War III. Now, we know that empires do fall. It is inescapable universal law. What the world is witnessing now are the death throes of the U.S. empire withering in fury at the exposure of its malevolent and predatory imperialist past and even its future. Now understand, the future is perhaps even more uncertain than even the Washington oligarchs could have imagined. Their evil hegemonic designs for the world seem to have hit an insurmountable obstacle in Syria. Where Iraq and Libya had fallen swiftly and with minimal protest, Syria has resisted, and resisted with seemingly every fiber of its culture, every fiber of its civilization and noble history that has confounded the narrow exceptionalist mindset of the military strategists and orchestrators of war inside Washington's war room. And this war was a second go-around, in my opinion, at Iraq. I'm going to try to explain that, piece all this together. It followed the aerial bombardment in 1991 and the sanctions of 1990 through 2003, which killed or displaced more than 1 million and were described by UN officials as genocidal. Saddam bought the first war on his own country by invading Kuwait. I meant that, but he did not the second. Second was finding someone to blame for 9/11, but only too late. For the Iraqi people, we, the people, realize we had been sucker punched by the false claims being made by the American, British, and Australian governments. Now, later we see the same three nations move in 12,000 oil platforms and pump right in Iraq. Hillary lost in these emails, these lost emails, admits that she left American vehicles and armor there. She admits this, just so the jihadists could form up and keep the government at bay while they moved in security companies and oil derricks. This is while she was a senator on committees that overseen these very things. Did anyone count the 109,000 oil tanker trips made from Iraq to Houston, Texas? You don't think the war was over that? Then next came Libya by the evil hand of this woman. More propaganda followed by the destruction of the most developed country in Africa during a 7-month aerial onslaught that was much worse than the American press ever showed. In matter of fact, there was an American crackdown on even images of these bombings, but they were American, French, and British planes. The campaign ended in the hideous murder of Gaddafi. Hillary said, "We came, we saw, he died," cackled little Hillary Clinton. Libya was completely destroyed and overturned and turned into another home base for the Islamic State. And all the leftover equipment we gave them to form an army. Who told you about the contracts between Al-Nusra and Toyota? Where Toyota urged through Hillary's own meddling, she encouraged as a senator, she encouraged Toyota with millions of dollars in tax write-offs and tariff deals. This is linked in the emails. Why people would even vote for this witch, nobody would know. But she went and emailed Toyota and urged them, as I said, with millions of dollars, tax write-offs and tariffs deals, to get them to sell the Islamic State 2,900 brand new Toyotas. Her email proves she is the only one, as Trump said, that formed ISIS. And I completely agree. Now, if Hillary for president is ready to create a possible American civil war by lying about Russian hackers to steal the election, and trust me, many of my colleagues have noticed many patriots now getting ready like never ever before. In fact, it looks like today's just before the revolution when secret men were storing up powder and balls. Just imagine what Hillary as president will do. Don't think Putin does not see this. His world-class analysts at the Kremlin see this, and they know if she is elected president, that they will have to engage us in a nuclear war, losing their nation. Have you noticed how they're preparing and we're not? When you recall your children from abroad, war with the West is imminent. They are preparing as a nation while we, just a few patriotic citizens that are awake here, are prepping. What do you think the outcome will be if Moscow believes on election night that Hillary is winning? You get that? Let me say that again. What do you think the outcome will be if Moscow believes on election night that Hillary Clinton is winning? I can tell you this. Consider what they will be thinking and how the military of Russia will be pressuring Putin. It will be world war, and they will bring it in the most massive way it can be had, even on our own soil. The Bible predicts this. I believe that we only have 20-something plus days left to make amends to our Creator, because this situation is literally that dire. The haste and tensions in the tone has an alarm bell feeling to it. My battle sense tells me that some sort of tense exchange has just erupted in the highest diplomatic channels. Something tells me it has something to do with Pello. I have this sick and foreboding dread, suggesting feeling like a triple dog dare has been declared. I triple dog dare ya! That's what's going on right now with Russia. My first thought was they are getting ready for war when I heard these things about Russia recalling all of the ambassadors, generals, diplomats, children from abroad. Things must be really getting hot for them to do this. Nothing in Western media really about this, certainly not on mainstream media. Not like the 1980s when the peace movement had a real effect on policy. The West will get nuked, and most will be totally unaware until they see the mushroom cloud just before they get their retinas burned out. You think I'm trying to scare you? You haven't seen nothing yet. This war will start before the election, because if Trump gets in there may be no war. Does anyone see that we are at God's own turning point? Does anybody see that but me? That to reform and to have peace, prayers matters most. or that a rush to nuclear nightmare so evil that nothing can stop it occurs over Hillary being elected. I've talked to many of my pals overseas this week, and every single one of them has told me the same thing. Putin is definitely ready for war. I'm tired of preaching about war. I have for over 8 years now because I knew this day would come soon. I believe that if Russia was going to do a sneak attack, that election time would be the most vulnerable time they have ever had to do such. I don't know how many of you would agree with me, but I know I'm telling the truth. The Russians know that the first strike missiles in the so-called missile defense bases in Poland and Romania are going to be upgraded to nuclear capable anytime now, in response to the Russians' nuclear capable Iskanders and Kaliningrad missiles, of course. These first strike missiles will be able to reach deep into Russian territory. Putin knows he needs to act on or before Election Day. Don't think twice about this. Being prepared is better than being toast. In history, this is actually a war warning. Since now Putin is recalling all of his children, government officials who are studying overseas this week, and massive plane loads of them are coming in from all over as being reported on Sputnik News. Times of extreme tension, the repatriation of non-combat and non-diplomatic personnel, especially families, is often a government priority. It does have morale and moral implications, which most Americans do not understand. About to explain this to you. Since the families of diplomatic personnel are being repatriated, the situation is truly dire. Russians studying abroad do not have diplomatic immunity, so their repatriation comes first, and it does indeed make sense. Putin would probably lose the support of a lot of high-ranking officials if he nuked their children. Also, if you're sitting in Moscow watching NATO's ICBMs on a screen arcing into the USA from Russian submarines, would you be more or less inclined to obey a launch order if your children were at Harvard? So you see, recalling your diplomats' kids for sure in a time of war is a move that we even did ourselves in World War II. If the Hildebeest gets in by throwing the election, I would say that Inauguration Day would be a nice date on the nuclear calendar. All of us, collective deplorables, will be in the same place, same time. Sneak attack at the outcome of the new American leader would throw down such confusion and panic that world over every bobblehead would wobble from the fire and brimstone, and the most world problems would be solved in one fatal swoop as Putin sees it. Hillary's own staff has even warned her that Putin could pull this after saying she would attack Russia and shoot down their aircraft and create a no-fly zone on national television during the debate. And so what does she do? Well, let me tell you her plans. Her campaign schedule runs through the 23rd. She has no further events planned. This means that apart from the two events this Monday and the 90-minute debates on the 9th and 19th, Hillary will not show her face for 20 days. Where do you think she will be? No chance for the cameras to catch her chronic cough, her extropia, failure of eyes to converge when looking forward, her dyskinesia, involuntary head movements in response to lights and noise, her tremors, her freezes, her falls, her confusion, her disorientation. She'll have plenty of time to take these drug holidays in her little bunker. Structured treatment interruptions to increase the effectiveness of her medication when she resumes treatment just before the debate. She's going to run off to the nuclear bunker and declare herself president well underground in the new Capitol at Denver in one such scenario just before the bombs fall. In fact, that is where she is going to hide out. That's what we've been told. Trump told Hillary if elected, he had called for a special prosecutor to investigate her national security crimes, and he'd personally throw her in the slammer. I don't think Putin was not watching, because he was. More than enough stories concerning Hillary's psychotic episodes as First Lady, as Senator, Secretary of State. Stories about her using exceedingly foul language, screaming for no reason, throwing objects, stealing, come on now, stealing out of the White House, right off the walls. Her sick rejoicing in the depths of foreign leaders. Her vicious disregard for other human beings, which is, by the way, on the level that is tantamount with the behavior exhibited by sociopaths. In fact, FBI profilers that had profiled her had sent emails that were also released on WikiLeaks stating that her behavior was, by FBI profilers, sociopath. You're about to elect a sociopath for president. Her behavior could be construed as that of someone who is either mentally ill or one who is under the influence of evil entities, or both. Now, I don't believe that this is any kind of hyperbole. Hillary Clinton may very well be possessed. When I see her rotating eyes, I often think that. Besides Hillary's own dark side, she is also a puppet of the globalists. She will do and say whatever the global elite want her to do, which is the continued rape of the United States of America through open borders, rich trade deals, outsourcing, NAFTA, TAFTA, and all these other undated, non-signed agreements. The inclusion of millions of Muslim refugees, complete open borders, the invention of a new Cold War, even a hot war, to placate the neocon maniacs who serve the globalists and want nothing but profits and oil. See, the biggest oil field yet is yet to be taken, and that's the Nest 3 find there in the Golan Heights. And that is coming. The Bible says that move is coming also. The globalists will attempt to steal this election, and if that fails, there is no limit what they will do to stop Trump. They will collapse the German banks, they will start a war with Russia, or they will go after Trump himself personally. After all, she's got 63 murders now. How can you go through life with 63 friends, 63 people who have been around you, associated themselves with you, known you, talked to you personally, and have all died like flies around you? Man, if even one of those things happened to us, it would be a life-shaking experience. The police and the suspicions of our neighbors and friends would last for years and years. But with Hillary, it just falls off like water on a duck. These people are desperate because they know their time is running out, and in a awakened populace, it's marching against them, this movement. Freedom and goodness are lining up against evil, and it is time that we stand up, and it is time that we shout out against this. It is time that we pray for our leaders in a way that we have never done before. Trump is the voice for this nation. Now, I'm not here to campaign for Trump, but I'm telling you, a nation that is disguised with the sickening anti-family, anti-American, anti-God liberal agenda, a nation that longs back for the 1950s and 60s when we could leave our doors open at night, let our children ride their bikes down the street without fear. We are indeed at a prayer crossroads for our nation. Get that. Her ideas of open borders and unvetted Muslim refugees and diversity to the point of death for our country, the Marxist destruction of our schools, the poisoning of our churches, our streams, our rivers, our lakes, our waters, with the twisted doctrine, the complete and utter annihilation of the United States military from the greatest fighting force on earth to nothing more than an asylum for lackeys, cultural misfits, social engineers, and now transgenders. That's right. You show up at formation in PT wearing lipstick, and they can't say a word about it. Where did our nation go? Be forewarned, Trump is only the beginning. If he is cheated out of this election, or if an uninformed populace believe the lies and ushers in a real live demon as president, or if, God forbid, something else happens to this man, the movement will, however, continue. It will continue on Drudge. It will continue on Bibelhart. It will continue on InfoWars. It will continue on the Watchers Prophecy News and on 1,000 other patriotic media outlets, large and small, known and unknown, till the Second American Revolution comes by the implementation of strong cities networks, the UN, and the dismantlement of our Second Amendment rights as free Americans. See, in England, they're stuck with what they have. They can't change their government. They think they can by their little vote, but they're just voting for the same political lackeys over and over again in the same system. Our Constitution says that there is a fine line between sedition and telling our government by force, if we have to, that it must change. But I know the difference, and so do many American patriots. I keep saying over and over again, this nation is indeed at a most dire crossroads ever. Perhaps not seen since the revolution itself. We will be slaves to domestic and foreign globalists who wish to destroy our way of life, or we will choose freedom, or we will choose tyranny. It's up to you. It's only a few days away. What do you think Russia's looking at? What will you do, my dear listeners? What will you decide? Will you even spare one prayer tonight? Just one prayer for our nation? God's listening too. Are you getting prepared for Armageddon? Well, you sure better be. The Russians may have issues explaining to their own people after the nuclear ignited smoke stops why they didn't give the children abroad forewarning. Well, they just did. Putin is now doing that, being urged by his own generals to reel in the children who are studying abroad. Seems to me this may very well be the last preparation for a preemptive nuclear strike. Of course, they can always wrap it around sanctions and everyone would easily digest that. Well, we just had to nuke them because they laid too many sanctions. I'm afraid that it may be Mystery Babylon is about to be judged and caught completely off guard, just as Zechariah said. The handwriting is on the wall, as Daniel said. I've been praying that we could somehow avert the situation, say with Trump, or just in general, us backing away from our Sodom stances. But it may very well be too late for us. Now, I want you to understand that we do not have a spirit of fear here. We trust in Jesus Christ as our Lord for our protection, for our very salvation. Now, if you're going to trust Jesus Christ with your salvation, you're not going to let fear stop you. And if we only have 20-something days left, I strongly urge you to prepare your heart and your mind for what may be coming. Strange as it seems, Americans have let this happen. As we strayed from the truth in so many multiple fields, it's just mind-boggling, just from A to Z. I'm not an innocent myself, although I have recognized my part in allowing this to happen. But I've been preaching against this for 8 years now. I've reformed. I am a patriot. I am an American. And I'll be happy to inform you any day of the week about these things. All of these regurgitated lies substantiate a ill-gotten gains by so much of the alternate media to scare folks, instead of trying to explain to them the folly of not praying for our leaders. Can't urge that enough. Anyway, God bless us for sure that all this can be reversed somehow. We've prodded God, now we've prodded Russia, who'll be used to set Mystery Babylon on fire. If I had a better place to go right now, I'd already be gone, but I do not. Smoky Mountains is a nice place. There's a lot of caves and things here. And I have made my peace with my Lord. I accept my fate in this manner, but I will try to knock sense into every single American under the sound of my voice that is wise enough to listen. And try not to be scared, because we're not doing that. We're trying to inform you. It seems Mystery Babylon gets nuked all by herself before the other countries get judged. At least this is the way I've read the prophecies. That will be the exception, not the ordinary, when it comes to the first lesson to the other nations in how not to act. I'm really dismayed that Christian churches do so little to teach about America's destiny if we do not fundamentally change. When they teach American history, they don't even tell you what it was like in the 1950s to be able to go to the playground by yourself as a 6-year-old child and play with your friends. They don't teach that anymore. They teach our children ways that promote peace rather than war. Not at all. So I urge you tonight to put your hope in Jesus. To cry out for the Lord to bring a cleansing and a turning in this nation. To really individually continue to seek out the heart of God and ask the Spirit of God to give eye salve so there may be clear spiritual sight regarding this election and the destiny of our nation. Also, buy white garments from me so that you will not be shamed by your nakedness, and ointment for your eyes so you will be able to see. It's in Revelations 3:18. Quick reminder, the Lord's in charge. He's not biting his fingernails saying, "What should I do?" as if he's sleeping at the back of the boat in the midst of the storm. There's no need to worry when you're on board with him. Remember the outcome of that story: faith rules. So let me try to wrap this up and put this all in perspective for those of you that don't know. In the early 60s, a plan was put forward by U.S. Chief of Staff to perform an all-out nuclear attack on the Soviet Union, yielding 100 to 150 million Russian casualties, and an estimated 6 to 7 million U.S. casualties on the East Coast. But President Kennedy stood up and he said, "Heck no, you guys are crazy." Shortly thereafter, the very next week, he was assassinated. Now it seems that most Christian churches now spend more time worshiping the synagogue of Satan rather than Christ. Of the 400 prevalent denominations and various factions thereof, now the main 11 of them have all but 2 allowed gay ministers and women to become pastors, and other teachings of LBJT transgender evil. They also subjugate Christian values to those of the New Worlders in order to be politically correct. Now, as a result of all these failures, most Christian congregations will not even be able to discern the Messiah from the Antichrist. We've been so conditioned by these images from everywhere, movies, television, and everything else, that when the great deception comes, many will just fall face down and believe it. Not just the "oh bummer," we need a full-blown military coup and the complete vetting, imprisonment, or worse, of everyone covering up for and supporting the criminal Clintons. These emails prove it. Then a return to a signed, traceable, and verifiable voting ballots cast by those with proper IDs. Can't afford an ID? Then you're too stupid to vote. They swore an oath to defend the Constitution, and we desperately need them to uphold their oath. Forward march! No one, I guess, but me sees that if she is elected, the rush for Putin to pull off one of the biggest, grandest sneak attacks in all of history that will make Pearl Harbor look like a candy run. Even now in Aleppo, heavy Russian airstrikes in many militants' points inside Aleppo of Sheikh Zayed and eastern Aleppo city, west and north, all this coming from a sudden-like and full charge not seen since World War II of Iranian Hezbollah forces full outright versus the city, now as Putin is putting out threats to shoot down American planes if they dare try to interfere. You also understand that Obama needs a plan. If he's going to stay in office currently, he is mulling sanctions versus Russia and maybe some very limited missile strikes on ISIS areas, however, nowhere near Aleppo, just because he doesn't want to offend anybody. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has canceled a planned visit to France amid this row in Syria. That also is very telling. Now, he had been due to meet French President Hollande on in the open in a new Orthodox church later this month. But after France's government said talks would be confined to Syria, the visit was halted. French presidential sources said that wasn't the real reason. Real reason is that Putin needs to be at home for the war. On Monday, Mr. Hollande suggested Russia could face war crime charges at The Hague over its bombardment of Syria's city of Aleppo. State newspaper said the visit was canceled as France may not exist. Yeah, dig this. State newspaper said the visit was canceled as, this is Russian state newspaper, said that the visit was canceled as France may not exist by the end of October. More war rhetoric that is coming in every day that indicates something very, very big is up and brewing like never, ever before. Now, Turkish Prime Minister Yildirim said on Tuesday that he was concerned by U.S. Democratic Party presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's remarks suggesting that she will consider arming the Kurds in Syria and Iraq if she wins the presidency. This week, Prime Minister Erdogan and Putin met, and her remarks were definitely on the table. Now let's get into that for a moment, because this is about to shock you. Putin had told Erdogan that he was determined to do all he could do to see that she did not win, because for them it was the same as a declaration of war. Did you hear that? That's out of Putin's mouth! This information was released through Duma sources after the meeting with tape recordings to verify all this. Now U.S. sources and Obama is perched and dry with having now to defend Hillary's remarks to NATO and the rest of the world that, hey, you know Putin could be serious. And yes, indeed, he could start a huge war. So it has now got to be linked that he and his staff have called Hillary and asked her to retract such things because war is coming even closer. So far, I can tell you this, that the Clintons have not done so, and even more escalated the no-fly zone talk that she wants currently over Syria. It's making Putin pretty furious. In a message in the latest batch of emails between Hillary Clinton and her chairman, John Pasetta, shows the presidential candidate knew the government of Saudi Arabia and Qatar provided financial and logistical support to ISIS terrorists in the Middle East. That's how bad we hate Russia, that we would use ISIS against them. This is becoming a direct confrontation, folks, not a proxy confrontation any longer. WikiLeaks has released a third batch of Clinton email campaign emails and another 1,200 tomorrow. The email exchange, which starts with Hillary Clinton outlining an 8-point plan for ending ISIS, which she created, Includes the enlistment of Pagmercia forces in the fight against terrorism because she can't find anybody else that she can trust. Significant military support from the United States and its allies, missiles, armor, and more. She goes on to say the U.S. should be ready and willing to arm the Free Syrian Army. There is no Free Syrian Army now. Against the Syrian government. This is also a vast pressure on Putin's generals, Iran, and the others to take very swift action versus the United States very soon before the election. Maybe right during it. NATO's first missile defense facility in Eastern Europe went into operation at the former airbase in Desalvo, southern Romania on May the 12th. It is called the Aegis Ashore Missile Defense System, and it contains a standard 3 1B interceptor missiles, and I know all this is complicated, but I'm going to explain it. It is a shipborne system in which some of the equipment was dismantled and moved to shore. It includes a vertical launcher for 24 interceptor missiles. These can both shoot down nuclear missiles and can be nuclear missiles. On the same day, it became known that a similar site will be built in Poland for the upgraded Standard 3 missile to be put in service before 2018. Now, Putin has sworn this will never happen. Our United States would be in ashes first. This is Putin's sworn statement. Memos released by WikiLeaks now place U.S. troops and nuclear experts now in Romania, both now with our newly deployed former Turkish bombs that have just been moved there, but also now upgrading some of the launch tubes to fire nuclear missiles at short-range targets in Russia. Hillary Clinton has said now she fully supports these upgrades and will continue the missile shield in Poland. There's so much more. It's leading the world to the very brink. So I would ask, in all my hope for our nation and our people and our world, that you would pray for our leaders. I've said this about 10 times already on this show. As things this month are closer than ever before in the history of all wars to being one that wipes out most life on earth. I'd read how many people there are on this planet, and when you wipe out 1/3 of them, you'll see a murderous tirade that you cannot even conceptually imagine. Understand, a great deception is coming. I hope you are ready. Today, WikiLeaks released what is by far the most devastating link of the entire campaign. This makes Trump dirty talk videos look like an episode of Barney and Friends. Even though when Trump called Hillary the founder of ISIS, he was telling the truth and 100% accurate, as Putin has been saying all along, we now have proof. You're going to vote for her, the founder of ISIS? Media has never stopped ripping him apart over it. But it's true. Today, the media is forced to eat their own hats because the newest batch of these linked emails show Hillary, in her own words, admitting to doing just that, funding and running ISIS. I don't think that's going to end her because I don't think Americans really care. I think they don't really understand that we are at a crossroads in the next 20-something odd days that is going to determine whether America sets us back to the 1950s in our demeanor and standing, or whether or not we continue on a path that will lead us to the outcomes of Jeremiah 51. John Pacetta, Hillary's campaign chairman, who was also a counselor to President Obama at the same time, was the recipient of the 2014 email, which was released today. Now, Julian Assange promised his latest batch of links would lead to the indictment of Hillary, and it looks like he's not kidding. But whether or not our government under Obama will take that serious, that's anyone's guess. The email proves Hillary knew and was completely complicit in the funding, arming of ISIS by our allies, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and that the United States, under her direct supervision as Secretary of State, armed them. Including that, what I told you about Toyota. Understand, folks, that it is important that we have our lives right, that we have our hearts right, that we love one another, that our highest calling be to love our neighbor as ourselves. Jesus said, "You are my friends if you keep my commandments." Well, we need more friends like that. I'm a Quaker man myself, and I know that friends are very important in our life. I don't think I could have made this many years without mine. I have many of them which I think deeply about and that I love dearly. But all these things, all these loves, all these peoples, all the things that you've ever known can come to a 1,000,000-degree inferno within 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And you will have no warning. Zechariah makes it clear, this thing's going to come like a thief in the night. It is a sneak attack. And now with this very latest information that I have received, I want you to understand completely how serious this is. Get your heart right with God. Don't be fearful of anything. Live your life. Love your children. Do your best at work. Tomorrow is not promised, folks. Live for today. This has been Mars signing off, the Watcher's Prophecy News. I love you and good night.